Hey guys, Diplex here again. Welcome back to Men of War Assault Squad 2. Today we are trying out the Interwar mod, a mod that covers the 20 or so years of interwar period between World War I and World War II. Plenty of fighting all over the world. Sure, Western Europe took a bit of a break, but was back at it again 20 years after World War I. But as I said, this mod covers a variety of different conflicts, some smaller, some larger, all over the world during this interwar period, 20 years, roughly. It's a lot of stuff, honestly. You'd think the world would calm down a bit after World War I. You're wrong. It amped it up. It warmed up for World War II, one could say. So, pretty excited to cover this mod. We're gonna do plenty of historical battles. In fact, this mod is so good for alternative history stuff that I had to promise the developer, Colonel Rooster, that I'd stick to historical battles for like 100 videos until going off the road. Today, we are doing the Battle of Hudaydah, also known as just Hudaydah, and it was a port in the Arabian Peninsula on the western side, at the time governed by the Yemenis, and during the Saudi-Yemeni War of 1934, King Abdulaziz of Saudi Arabia declared war on the self-proclaimed Imam of Yemen, who was supported by the Italians, and then the fight began. It lasted for a few months. It wasn't all too drawn out, but the Saudis kind of moved from town to town, city to city, port to port, clearing as they went. The war ended in May, but you know, there's still Yemen. Yemen's still around today, so they came to some kind of deal. The Saudis were primarily supported or funded by the British, or at least equipment provided by the British, and the Yemenis were actually more officially supported by the Italians, who had interests in the region, trading and merchants and whatnot. So they even had warships off the coast and troops on the ground to prevent the looting and raiding of merchants in the area. So I've done my best to recreate the Battle of Hudaydah today. We're on this beautiful map made by Holborn, originally a Tobruk map, but it has been remastered to fit the battle today, and I'm hella excited to get this one going. So without further ado, guys, let's get the Battle of Hudaydah started. And it's going to commence with a massive mortar barrage containing British-made white phosphorus rounds. And that's something I don't think we've seen on the channel before. Some rather nasty ammunition, to say the least. Oh, that's a good impact. Beautiful rounds, by the way. That's going to torch someone back there. Or at least set fire to the ammo. That's awesome. I'm just sat here in awe of the fighting and all the visuals and sounds. It's absolutely amazing. Here is a Yemeni 12-pounder. I do believe this one is dated to like mid-19th century, 1860s or so. Commonly used during this conflict. It's firing away at the Saudi infantry and armored vehicles. That happens to be the Rolls-Royce. I believe this is a 12-piston engine. Long hood to give that away. With a mounted Vickers inside the turret. Beautiful car, nice to see it being used. Unfortunately, though, not well suited against 12-pounder artillery. I hear more engines further back here, and that is indeed the FT-17 making an appearance. Colonel Rooster said these bloody tanks were everywhere, and that's true. I did read that the Saudis did indeed have tanks. So presumably that would be the FT-17. We combined some knowledge and came to that conclusion. It's always fun to do all the historical research ahead of a battle, especially from a war that isn't really well known, one that wasn't too big, one that didn't go on for too long, and one that certainly hasn't been covered in any movies or popular media and stuff. So you kind of have to make do with what you've got. But the Saudi infantry is moving up, taking cover behind the armor, or at least following suit as it's pushing ahead. I believe the FT-17 here on the left side has been knocked out by that 12-pounder. Stood no chance against the Yemeni artillery here, part of the first line of defense. Some of the machine guns are still spinning away at the enemy, but most of the riflemen behind the side, or behind the sandbags rather, have been shot dead. How are we doing further back here by the ruins? Looking pretty good. We have a variety of British and Italian machine guns being used by the Yemenis today. Those were the two more prevalent donating factions of the conflict. Or not donating, but they provided most of the equipment, one could say, for both of the fighting sides. Plenty of more Saudi infantry being brought up now as they've disabled most of the machine guns and artillery. Look at the hundreds of riflemen rushing up right now. That's what I really love about this, like, early 20th century warfare. I'd say this is much closer to World War I than World War II, despite the fact that it is in 1934, just years before the outbreak of World War II. In fact, early World War II, in some ways, resembled World War I more than just a few years into World War II. The advancement of military technology was so rapid after the outbreak of World War II that it distanced itself from the early years, such as 1939 and 1940, way more than, you know, the period before, during the interwar years and whatnot. So this is 1934, but I'm getting more World War I vibes from this than I am World War II, and that is explained. So, more Rolls-Royce armored cars have been brought up. There are Saudi infantry all over the place right now. And the FT-17 is being brought up here on the left side as well. This artillery position has been knocked out now. So the ridge is being captured. The Saudis who step up on it are going to face fire from the second line further back that we're going to take a closer look at right now. And behind it is the port itself, away in the mist. So this is a very large battlefield, and it's nice to kind of have things separated for a minute. This is also a big gun that was used in this war. I believe this one is dated till the very end of the 19th century, 1897 or so. It's a very heavy piece of artillery, and it was also seen during this war in the hands of the Yemenis and Saudis as well. The Yemeni ammo depot is going to take another hit, and that's going to obliterate most of the defenders inside. Whoa, here comes a Royal Saudi Air Force biplane bomber on its way to its target, which I do believe is this massive fort gun entrenched up on this hill. Oh, direct impact on the ammo stored within the sandbags, and that gun is knocked out. Beautiful strike. I hear a second plane above. You see the shadow. Here it is. It's going to drop a few bombs on the truck. Try and hit the infantry behind the sandbags. It's going to continue to this entrenched position on the left side. Good strike. It's awesome to use some biplanes as well. We haven't really used the air power overall, really, I feel like. We don't really dabble with that, but it's nice, it's good. It's definitely an extra hour or so of work, but it's worth it. For just a, half a minute of presence, it's awesome. More vehicles are being brought up, and I see an old car. This is probably, without a doubt, a Saudi commander being brought up to the battlefield. I find that so awesome. He's probably got his royal guard with him. That's cool. This is the British Garford. I'm not 100% sure this was used. I'm trying to spice things up, add a variety to the vehicles we're using today. But it's a cool vehicle. It's packing a lot of firepower if used correctly. I don't believe it ever had the chance to show it for us, because it's been knocked out by the remaining fort guns. FT-17s seem to be coming to a halt right now, waiting for the infantry to catch up. They're going to remain static and fire from a distance. Here comes a convoy from the left flank of British Austins, also in the hands of the Saudi army. We're going to move over to the fort, which is currently under Saudi artillery fire. We have a defensive line outside the walls. We have troops on the walls themselves, and then troops within the walls. So this is going to turn into a bloody siege. And that's what I also find so cool about these more primitive fights. Without the dive bombers, without the fast-moving tanks, without all the heavy armor, and just the massive infantry waves, is that protection like these old walls aren't obsolete like they would be later in World War II. When you had dive bombers coming in from all the angles, and you had way faster and more heavily armored vehicles, and where weaponry would be way more deadly as well to make these walls more obsolete. They're actually relevant in a situation like this, and that's what I find really cool. It's just a nice feeling. It's brutal in a way. It's almost medieval in some kind of way. Saudi mortars have been brought up as well. We have two here in the center. We should be looking at another two up here on high ground, occupying the former Yemeni artillery position. We should be targeting the troops entrenched here on the left side. Now, both factions were using the British 4.2-inch mortar, I do believe. It was also commonly used. But this position isn't really putting up much of a resistance right now. Most of the troops are remaining in cover, not peeking their heads up. They don't want to take that risk. I hear engines inside the town itself. We've got more trucks carrying troops arriving, unloading more Yemeni infantry to help bolster the defense of the city. That is so cool. The walls are still holding, plenty of casualties. I do believe the last 2 guns have been disabled. We still have machine gunners and we still have infantry holding the walls. So the siege is far from over, but the infantry is getting closer now. The Saudis are given more and more room to breathe here and to maneuver. We've got some troops fighting close up here by the sandbags. An officer and okay. Well, what used to be an officer in a duel with a hidden Yemeni trooper. Okay, we're going to see a few grenades being thrown right now. They're going to try and get him out of his position, and that's going to work perfectly fine. He's going to take a few rifle bullets to his back. What a nasty way to go. The FT-17s are being ordered up, firing as they're moving. What a cool sight. Infantry will follow suit. Let's take command over a few Yemeni troopers. Let's have them crew some of the guns that are currently left uncrewed. Spice up the battle a bit and add some extra brutality to the fight. He was quickly dealt with by a FT-17 who's keeping their eyes peeled for all the defenders on the walls. Do we have anyone alive up on this wall? No? Oh, one guy. Let's try and put him behind the 12-pounder, see if he can go to work on that FT-17. Gun might be disabled, it looks so. Can't move to the right side. That one is down as well. No, he's gonna return to his former position and continue the fight. Masses of Saudi infantry getting closer and closer. They should be winning the fight on the left and right flank as well. So we might see more reinforcements arrive using the road here outside the entrance to the port itself. How is the defense doing right now? The walls are pretty much emptied right now. Only corpses remain of the former Yemeni defenders. We have troops inside within the actual walls that are ready to receive the attacking Saudis as they head through the breach into the city. We still have some troops active by the outer perimeter here behind the sandbags, but in general it is quieting down, to say the least. At least when it comes to the firepower from the Yemeni side of things. They are indeed becoming ever so more quiet here as the fight continues. And the Saudis are getting closer and closer to the gates themselves. Mortars are still dropping down over the heads of the Yemenis, and many are still suppressed and pinned, not daring to really put their heads up. Oh, look at that. More Saudi reinforcements are being brought up. They're going to unload a lot of troops up close, and the defenders won't really have time to catch them at a distance. The breach is about to begin. There's still some fighting by the left side defensive position up there outside the fortress. You can tell there's a lot of Saudi troops who have got their attention on some defenders still remaining behind those sandbags or perhaps inside those bunkers. But we're going to put our attention to the breach here as Saudi infantry is storming into the port itself. They have made it past the walls, and what is going to follow now is some brutal close-quarter fighting here among the streets of Hudaydah. Alright guys, we're gonna go ahead and take a look at the casualties of today's battle as the Saudis are now storming the city itself, finishing off the last remaining Yemeni defenders inside. We're gonna mark the Yemenis in yellow and the Saudis will be marked in red. And you can tell what a bloody battle this has been. Corpses everywhere. I think we need a name for the ridge. Guys, it's been a crazy battle. We have a lot of casualties back here, but it is dwindling in comparison to the casualties up here on the ridge, and not to mention on our way to the fort itself. Plenty of casualties up here on the walls as well. It's been a bloody fight. The Saudis aren't quite done yet, but we're gonna go ahead and let them finish up in peace as the last Yemenis are retreating further away from the walls. I really hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you would like to see next from this mod. Think of any interwar conflict. I'm pretty sure I can make it happen. Perhaps the Italian invasion of Abyssinia. Perhaps the troubles in Ireland. I mean, let me know. There's plenty to be shown. Thank you guys for watching. It's good to be back, and I'll see you soon again. Ciao.